Welcome. Welcome to the Fairfield Art Association's long-awaited evening. We're so glad that each and every one of you can be here, and a special welcome to Parsons College alumni who are in town this weekend. I'm thinking that Lee is looking down on us with a big smile thinking, I told you this turkey ain't done yet. And what a fun evening. They even have a real band for me. Thank you. One of the very last times that I saw Lee at Sunnybrook, I mentioned that the Fairfield Art Association was thinking it was about time to do another sculpture project. It had been over 20 years. And I looked at him and I said, what would you think of a Lee Gobble art piece? And he quietly smiled and he seemed pleased at the idea, but not at all taking me serious. Lee passed away at the age of 100 in May 2015, and at his memorial service, Mayor Malloy and I approached each other, and we were both having similar thoughts of doing something special in his honor. And I told him about my last visit with Lee. Soon ideas were springing forth, and the Fairfield Art Association board agreed the timing was right. It was almost our 50th anniversary. Leon and Linda Conley, they're Lee's faithful caregivers, offered his tie collection to sell as a fundraiser. Thank you for that. You'll see a lot of them throughout the area, and we also have another tub of them. We have so many that we're going to have a contest tonight that you guess how many's in the tub, and we'll have 2 tickets to the artist series for the winner. I want to quickly introduce the Art Association board. Kella, I don't know if you can step forward here. Kella, Deb Doyle, Jan Burke, David Kramer, John Preston, Nancy Hebner, Karen Howring, Mackenzie Champ, Eileen Hawthorne, Werner Elmker, and Holly McDowell. Thank you for all the hard work.
And Susan.
The placement of this sculpture of Lee T. Gobble II, Mr. Fairfield, is almost the exact same spot where he stood with community members as they joined him in watching of the raising of the courthouse steeple. He will now forever stand there gazing at the steeple that he succeeded in replacing. As a veteran, he acknowledges the memorial and flags across the street, and the rest of the sculpture, the figure pays tribute to his quirky personality, his generosity, and playful antics. You can look for these features in the sculpture, such as his famous telephone, Hershey's Kisses, his turned-up collar, and if you don't know what that means, you'll have to ask later. And then multiple sports pins that he supported all the sports teams around the area. We had 3 models who fit the bill in height and weight of the range of Lee at the age of 60 to 70, which is what he is depicted. There are some people that have looked at the sculpture as it was being made and didn't think it looked quite like Lee, but it was based on a lot of photographs when he was 60 and 70 years old. So it will look different to different people, but we think it is a really good representation of him. These models were really good sports. They posed in short shorts in this atrium in the chilly winter months for Chris as he sculpted. And those models were Ken Norton, who is now in Iowa City at the hospital, Herb Shafer from Bettensport, and David Miller, who drove back and forth from Des Moines to model. He had a relationship with Lee and wanted to do that, and was a Parsons graduate. So thank you to them. Our mayor, Ed Malloy, who also stood in the same spot the day the steeple was erected and spoke alongside Lee, and he will now say a few words.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for your leadership on this great project that means a lot to me personally, and I say very confidently that it means a lot to all of the Parsons graduates that are here with us this weekend, and also to everyone in town. I mean, to say that Lee Gobble was a beloved figure in this town is an understatement. And I think tonight we all have a smile in our heart. It's a smile that's more of just a silly grin, really, because when you think about Lee and you think about those interactions, you think about him running into your office in the middle of the day with candy kisses, or just in some way, just basically not looking to intrude on what you're doing, but to just bring with him some little piece of joy and expression that will make you laugh and leave you laughing as he leaves. Now, Susan, you brought up the statue or the steeple, and that was a very dear project to Lee. As many of us know the story, that when that came down 70 years or so, his dad made Lee promise to him that he would someday be sure that the steeple got back up on the courthouse. And as life passed and time moved on, and Lee grew a little bit older, I think he started to worry a little bit about whether that was actually ever going to get done. So when he said he was really ready to start that, he found that he had a lot of help within the community. And raising the money and organizing for the design and for it being put up on the top of the building was something that eventually, got done, and it was a great celebration for us all. And how many of you were there for that celebration? So Lee and I always had a very nice friendship, and Lee was always very complimentary of different things that I was involved with. But there was one thing in his life that meant the most to him about our exchange and our relationship, and it took place that day when Lee told an off-color joke. Who's surprised by that? No hands are showing. And he told an off-color joke that bombed, basically, and I covered for him and made it okay and made it sound all right. And how many are in the mood for an off-color joke? Most of you. So if you weren't here, Lee, upon receiving the microphone, said first that he didn't think he would be participating in another erection again in his life. With the crane bringing the steeple to the top of the building. And it bombed. Lee, it's going better tonight. So I followed Lee, and I got the microphone, and I said, Lee, I said, of course that's a courthouse, and you meant election. And he nodded, and I tell you, there weren't no less than a dozen times the rest of his life that he came up to me and grabbed me by the arm and said, hey, thank you for covering for me on that joke. So I was very happy to do that. Lee was Mr. Fairfield. I recall, late in Lee's life that we had to have a piece of Lee that we could all remember, and what would that be? And we also always very fond of the sculpture work of artist Chris Bennett, who you will be meeting just shortly. And those two ideas came together and said, yes, we have to and memorialize Lee with a statue, a piece of public art, something that he would really appreciate. Susan obviously had the same feeling and same thought, and this idea also came together very, very quickly. We're really thrilled to be celebrating all of this together again. Wonderful that our Parsons family is here with us this evening. We have a wonderful night for our Oktoberfest, and Lee would like nothing more to be in the middle of this celebration, and he is. So this is hoping that the legacy of Lee Gobble and all of the wonderful things that he did and all of the joy and love that he brought to this community will be remembered forever in this wonderful memorial that we're inaugurating tonight. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Ed. I'm really excited to say that all 5 members of our dream team collaborating artists are here tonight. The Art Association has been honored to work with each one of these accomplished artists to participate in this project. Our lead artist is Christopher Bennett. Chris, you want to come forward? I think that one of the first projects that Chris worked on was when we brought him here to work on the William Coop and Friend in the city, in the Central Park. And that was, I have some pictures over there posted from that unveiling, and you have to look at them. He says it's somebody else. It does look like somebody else. I think Nan Cameron's in some pictures, and I think Bob Rasmussen and Mark Shafer, myself, and they're just fun to look at. And then we commissioned him to do the Leapfrog on the Carnegie building. So Chris has worked really, really hard and pulled all the artists together for this project to create this life-size bronze masterpiece. And I want you to stay here. Ken Rowe. Ken actually worked with Chris for a while when they were younger. And he is a Fairfield native and son of Jane Rowe, who I saw here somewhere. Ken has sculpted major pieces for Nashville's Public Square and created Lee's head and hands on our life-size sculpture. So it was a challenge to do the body by one artist and the head and the hands by the other and then fit them together. But it worked with a lot of hard issues. And then also Ken, years ago, Lee talked him into designing his famous turkey golf cart for a parade. We also found out that he asked Mark Shafer to do it, and Mark said no. And then when he asked Ken, he offered Ken more money than he had offered to Mark. So thank you, Ken. Our next artist is Mark Shafer. I like to call Mark Fairfield's own Renaissance man. He's one of the most incredible artists I know, and he's our local historian as well. So together, Mark and Chris developed the sculpture design to represent the character of Lee. Mark created the drawings, which you can see over there. They're all hand-painted, and they represent a turkey fan and in neckties, and then he hand-painted them. And you should really study them pretty good, especially when you get to look at the sculpture. You can see him from both directions if you're standing behind or in front. Harri Aalto. Yes, I'm so glad to see you're here. Harri is another talented local artist, and he's known for his stunning tile designs, as you see here. And he has translated Mark's paintings into colorful tiles that are set in the base of the sculpture. And Mark told me the other day, he said, he's calling these neck tiles. I love that. We've also been very fortunate to have our very own professional photographer, Werner Elmker. Thank you for being on this team of artists. Werner's documented this project from our very first meeting. He started taking photographs and videos, and he's created a lot of videos and put them on YouTube. And with him working on this, I am absolutely positive that he helped cinch the deal when we got our Iowa Arts Council and National Endowment for the Arts grants a year ago. So thank you, artists. We couldn't have done this without you, and it was a real challenge, I'm sure, to collaborate on this one project.
Like herding chickens.
Herding chickens. Thank you. The Fairfield Art Association is excited for Mr. Gobble to have a front row seat on the lawn of the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center. And I would like Executive Director Rustin Lippincott to just say a few words. And he does have on this magnificent Lee Gobble tie. Can you see how wide that is?
Keep talking. I want to take a picture for our Facebook page.
Okay. it's really nice to see this big group.
So I have one of the luckiest jobs, and I'm one of the luckiest people. I get to walk through these doors, and I know Chris was dying to grab the microphone because he wants to thank me because I was here all along the process, and I gave Chris those pep talks when he was carrying these heavy pieces of clay, and I got to see the entire process. So I'm lucky, and Fairfield's lucky now that because of Chris and the rest of the art team has made it through, or made the process. And I'm also lucky because I got to meet Lee, as many of you got to meet Lee. And although in his later years he didn't know my name, I was just son. So, Dad, we're making you proud. Thanks for your support. And I was asking the Parsons College guys that I had lunch with, what was it like in the 60s? And nearly every story they talk about was Lee Gobble, or Gobble's clothiers. So this is not only a tribute to the man Lee Gobble, but it's another tribute to the good old Parsons days. And I'm just so glad that it's able to happen today. And tomorrow we're going to have another Wall of Honor. So thanks for coming back to Fairfield. I hope we are making you proud and come back again and see what next thing we've done. So thank you.
Thank you, Rustin. I want to be sure to tell you to visit with these artists tonight after our reception. We will have it here and have this wonderful band playing. We are here to honor all of our really very generous donors who made this public art piece possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a temporary recognition list posted in the atrium. There will be a more permanent one, and we still are accepting some money for a garden that we're going to plant at the base, and this will be a Dorothy Bell garden. Dorothy and Lee worked together on garden tours, and they both loved planting spring bulbs, so some fundraising will go towards that. We are going to be serving cake and cider here in the atrium, where we have the Gobble Memorial memorabilia on display. And Mark has a show in the executive conference room. You're welcome to look at that. And we have a new exhibit in our main gallery of Iowa art quilters. There are 24 of them, and their work is amazing. You need to take a look at that. Speaking of art quilts, in the expo hall, there's at least 200 or more presented by the Northside Strippers Quilt Club. And I understand that tomorrow they will be awarding honor quilts to local servicemen at Saturday at 3 o'clock here, and it's open to the public, so if you'd like to come to that. I know Dave Neff is going to say a few remarks. Is Dave close by?
Coming your way.
Coming my way. Thank you, Dave.
Good evening. Thank you for the introduction, Susan. I'm with the Parsons College Foundation Fund, and tonight we celebrate Lee T. Gobble II and all the things he meant to Fairfield and Jefferson County. One common thread that Lee carried through all of his endeavors was spirit and joy and camaraderie, the spirit of taking pride in our community, the spirit of supporting each other in their chosen fields. 2 years ago, the Parsons College Foundation Fund announced the Parsons College Spirit Award. Our first recipient was Nancy Wertinen, who is present here this evening. She's president of our Parsons College Alumni Association. Last year, we recognized Ray Ham for all of his continuing support of Parsons here in Fairfield and assisting with local activities, and Ray is here tonight. This evening, we would like to recognize and add 4 new members to the plaque of the Spirit honorees. Would the following individuals please come forward at this time? Susan Kessel, Rustin Lippincott, Mark Shafer, John Braidwood. John Braidwood, can you hear me? He's in the building. He's coming down the stairway here. John's on his way. I'll continue. Each of these individuals has provided vision, dedication of time and talents, and a sincere passion for the efforts of the Parsons College Foundation Fund. We would like to recognize them by presenting them with a plaque and noting their names on a special plaque which hangs in the Parsons College Alumni Hall. I would like to now present you with your individual plaques. Susan, for your vision of allowing the Parsons alumni to have an alumni hall here in the Civic Center. Thank you so very much. Rustin is our leader here. He continues to work with us daily. We had lunch and did some planning, and this afternoon he was on set making sure everything's ready for tomorrow morning. Mark Shafer.
Thank you.
Mark, your Carnegie curator has provided Parsons with a place that we know there will always be a remembrance of our college that served us so well. John Braidwood, 2003, he had a vision of a foundation. He said, you know, we need to do something to help preserve this entity that we all know as Parsons College. And with that challenge, after Bob Rasmussen said, I think you better talk to this guy. He may have a vision here. We've put it together, and it has perpetuated. And as you can see around here this evening, we have a number of alumni that are here together. So please join me at this time with a warm round of applause to show our gratitude. And thank you all for being in attendance. Have a wonderful weekend.
So, John Blackstock. I was hanging the plaques yesterday out in the Parsons Hall for the Wall of Honor, and today he goes, did you find any more plaques in that box? And I go, no, I didn't. And he thought I took them out and threw them away. I didn't know what they were at all. This must have been them. Thank you. So, and now we will unveil and present as a gift to the City of Fairfield, Lee T. Gobble II, Mr. Fairfield. Please stick around. We're going to go out, the board members and Ed and Rustin, we're going to go out and unveil the sculpture. If it's not raining, you can join us, or you can go look out the windows. We will unveil it. And then come back in and enjoy the evening as long as you want to. Thank you.
Fairfield.
The story of the collar. Does anybody have their collar turned up?
Where's Sarah? Where's Sarah talking?
Lee liked to used to wear his collar up, and it attracted all the young women, and they'd come over and fix it for him. There's a phone in his pocket, a bow tie with feathers, pins, lots of pins, high school and Iowa, the Parsons College emblem on the front. Candy kisses are in his backhand. And the tiles, you're going to have to come back in daylight and see the beautiful, beautiful tiles depicting all the stories of Fairfield and Lee.
Well, good evening. We are the Fairfield Big Band. We're really pleased to be a part of tonight's festivities. We open with Get It On. And now, please welcome Emily McIntyre to the microphone.
Chris, congratulations. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah. Let's not wait another 35 years or whatever between statues.